After a pope dies, there is a process to elect a new pope called the conclave. Essentially, all of the cardinals are locked away until they vote on a new pope. But they still gotta eat. And historically, that has been quite the problem.
And so do I. Here I am. Yeah, he's correct. Conclave comes from Latin conclave, with a key.
A process I'll tell you about as I make this dish of ribs served at one of the most infamous conclaves in history. So thank you to Wildgrain for sponsoring this video as we feed the papal conclave. This time on Tasting History. Clausi cum clave, or closed with a key. That is where the term conclave comes from because the cardinals are actually locked away until they can decide on which of them is going to be the next pope. And the process has changed a little bit over the centuries, but much of it is still the same. But one aspect that has definitely changed is the food that is served to them. Today, the cardinals are fed modern meals, like in 2013, they received meals of soup, spaghetti, small meat kebabs, and boiled vegetables. And those meals were prepared by nuns.
Well, soup, spaghetti, probably proper spaghetti, small meat kebabs, really? Man, could you imagine the conclave eating kebab? I did not see that coming. I was expecting pizza and pasta. Which, I mean, given spaghetti, but man, the cardinals are eating that kebab. Isn't that like coming from the opposition? Anyways, boiled vegetables, cool. And it's from Corriere della Sera. Man, I haven't heard that. It's a publication that comes out, I think, every evening. In Italy, it's basically a newspaper. We used to have that, Corriere della Sera. Every household, almost, in Italy reads that. It's a very popular one.
Vegetables. And those meals were prepared by nuns. But in the 16th century, there was an entire army of cooks dedicated to feeding them, and they were led by one of the world's first celebrity chefs, Bartolomeo Scappi. And in his cookbook, known as the Opera, he detailed the preparations made for the conclave of 1549. Now today, the business of the conclave takes place in the Sistine Chapel, but in 1549, it took place in the nearby Pauline Chapel, as the Sistine Chapel was being used as a dormitory for some...
That is so beautiful. I mean, the art is absolutely breathtaking. I would like to say, though, for what he just said, he said that the nuns make the food. Did the nuns make the kebab? I thought Abdul did down the street, but apparently it's the nuns. Who would have thought?
This and several other rooms around the Sistine Chapel were partitioned off with wood partitions that were draped in green or purple cloth. And then inside of these 16.5 by 16.5 foot rooms, the cardinals were sequestered, and they would have a bed and a few other accoutrements, but it was pretty sparse. And for the most part, they ate all of their meals in these cells. They did not eat together for most of the conclave. Rather, they would have stewards bring food from the kitchens to the cells. And they would bring them in these hampers, which carried hot food from the kitchen, and then there was a tub that was filled with cold food from the credenza. And since Scappi's opera has all of the recipes that would have been served to the cardinals at the time, I decided to choose one for this episode. But I was barred from many of them because the conclave took place during winter, so...
Credenza, he used that term in Italian. It means basically like a cupboard. A credenza, well, credenza has multiple meanings, but it's, yeah, you could translate it as like a cupboard.
Basically, there were no fresh fruits or vegetables, and that X's out a lot of the recipes, and I also decided to steer away from some of the harder to find meats like porcupine, cow eyes, and peacock, and instead I opted for papal baby back ribs, as Scappi includes instructions for different ways to cook the back ribs of a domestic pig. If the pig is young, the ribs can be roasted on the spit with the rind or without, and with onions split in the pan, which are cooked with the fat that drips from the meat as it cooks. And before it is put on the spit, it is sprinkled with salt and ground coriander seed. You could also let the ribs stand in a marinade of vinegar, grape must syrup, garlic cloves, and coriander, and then cook it on the spit in the above way.
Okay, listen, I love this. It sounds great, the food. However, I hate the word spit. I know exactly the spike thing of metal where I know what it is. I don't know, guys. We got a petition for a removal. Let's call it a spite. Let's add an E, yeah, and let's switch it because it just ruins it for me.
Serving it hot with a sauce on top made of the same seasoning. And Scappi includes some other optional variants like adding rosemary or cutting up the ribs before cooking them in a sort of pile and then putting sour orange juice on top. But I am going for the marinade and the sauce. What I am having to do is slightly alter the way that it was actually cooked, because I don't have a spit nor an open flame here in my kitchen, so I'm going to be making them in the oven. And an oven is a wonderful way to cook ribs, as it is also a wonderful way to cook the many baked goods that I have been receiving from today's sponsor, Wild Grain.